Hey there. Welcome to my channel. I'm Solomon, and I'm here to share with you the wisdom that I've gathered and continue to gather in my life, hoping it adds value to yours. If you want to check out my work, my website is in the description box. And if you want to support this channel, do hit that subscribe button. But otherwise, thanks for tuning in, and hopefully you get something out of this. Okay, back on the Wisdom Podcast. We have our first guest here. Tell our viewers who you are, where you're from, and how we met.
Cool. 3 questions. So, who am I? My name is David Corsino. I'm Dominican, born and raised. Who am I'm recently, I've recently assumed the identity of a father.
Big up.
I've been a son for a long time, a brother to some people who I've allowed to come into my life more than I typically do. Brothers from another mother. I met Solomon during master's program, and I remember, coming in with a lot of imposter syndrome, and of course also adding the layer of dealing with the differences in culture and just the anxiety of meeting a new group of people who I'd be immersed with for the next 2 years. And within all that sort of, even if internal and self-imposed mental noise, it always, anytime or even the first time I saw Solomon, I knew that for some reason, I knew that the way we were raised and some of our upbringings had made us into were easy to appreciate from afar. And
this reminds me, I was actually swindled by the school. So we met at Princeton, New Jersey. When you didn't go to student orientation, prospective student orientation, right? Not orientation, but prospective student hosting night, whatever they used to call it. Where you get to visit the school and
before math camp, like in April. No, I didn't go to that.
Okay, so I went to that.
You did?
And then the graduating class had a bunch of black people in it. I was like, this is the coolest program.
Yeah.
As man, coming from undergrad, where you're it's not a lot of black folks, predominantly white institution.
In our class.
And then I'm like, yeah, I'm hyped. Yeah, I was like, I love you guys. I'm like, you guys are so smart. You got a bunch of Africans in here. We're all gonna be in the class. The black women here. I said, wow, Latinos and Latinas here. I said, this is gonna be a vibe. Yeah. I show up. I said, bro, everybody, yeah. They said, they said, no, it's just you. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm the only black guy here. What happened to all the black guys that were from the other class?
Only black man, the student.
And then they were like, oh, that was the graduating class. Yeah. So when you came, they were on their way out. Yeah. You were on your way in. I said, nah, you play with me, because that is marketing scheme right
here. But even the second years had more people.
Yeah, they had at least 2.
I remember because when I came in, it's just as in the black community, when you see Latinos, especially when they come from Latin American countries, you immediately know. Yeah. And so it's immediately this bonding. It just happens. You don't need to force it. You don't need to build it or cultivate it. And I remember it was Paulina, Paloma, and then Alvaro. It was a bunch of people. And then in my class, we had a couple, but I agree, it was not as diverse.
Our class is not diverse at all.
And it was shocking because even the class afterwards and the class where other fellow Dominicans went, it was much more diverse. And then I remember
they were like, "Oh, black people, not for you."
the picture we took in front of the fountain, was I think that was math camp. Then I sent it back home, and this friend of mine, she was like, "Bro, there's only one black guy." I was like, "Yeah,
there's
only one black.
There's only one black dot in this picture, bro."
Yeah.
That's yeah.
No, there was black women, but you
The,
were the only black man.
a couple black dots. Yeah, let me stop. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Only one black male dot. So, big question here: how do you personally define wisdom? Do you think it's something people are born with, or can it obviously could be developed over time? But do you think it's an inherent trait with your character or personality?
I think wisdom is inherently tied to experience, and so I think it's very difficult to be inherently born with it. Like, what I do think is that I've seen people be.
What is wisdom? I guess the first part of that question is how do you define wisdom?
Yeah, I think wisdom is a set of different manuals that you rely on to be guided through life. It's a compass in times of uncertainty and crossroads and interpersonal decision making. But then these manuals, you either adopt from other people and adjust, or you build as you go. Which is why I'm not entirely sure that there are some people that are simply born wiser than others. What I do think is that there's people that first either have made more mistakes or have put themselves in situations that you can derive lessons learned from faster than others.
Hmm.
So you increase your exposure to life much more than other people. Sometimes that's even induced, or the lack of is induced by your parents. So some parents are overly protective, some parents are a bit more loose or hands off, and so that's one. You learn as you go. You build your own manual. And then there's others that the other way is you. It's a combination of being humble and smart enough to let others or listen to others when they are trying to share advice, or sometimes they're not trying to share advice. They're just having a moment where they open up and share about their experience. And then if you have enough pause and humility, then you take a lot of lessons from those people and then bring them into your manual.
So then wisdom is a function of, like mathematically speaking, a function of just life exposure and
Yeah,
receptivity or
yeah,
humility.
yeah. And then there's the enhancer of that linear equation that's with time.
Hmm.
Um, that it's still linear, but for some people it has a steeper.
You start off at different levels, but it's something that's gradual over
Yeah,
time.
but then depending on how open and attentive you are to listening to others and letting others guide you, then you might have a steeper curve than someone else. Then your curve on wisdom and the things you learn and how much better you are at navigating through life might be higher than someone that is not as
So
humble or
wisdom is how good you are at navigating life.
yes. But the navigation, as I said
So if you're shitty at
initially,
navigating life, you're not very wise. Can you be wise and be not be a
I
good
think
decision
I
maker?
think at certain points throughout life, you will not be good at navigating a specific situation. It is in you to then adjust course and
Hmm.
correct course. Now, if you don't, then that's on you, because then it's a wasted lesson.
So
And
what's
that
the?
might come from being stubborn or being arrogant and not wanting to admit
Oh
your
yeah.
mistakes, and so that's a way to become stagnant in that sort of curve that we were
And
trying to
what's
illustrate.
the most valuable piece of wisdom you've learned in your life, and who or what taught it to you?
I'm not sure if I have a specific answer, but I'll tell you the most recent one that um, I adopted because I realized it applied very strongly to me where I am right now in my professional career.
Hmm.
And it's a very common phrase, but I think the timing in my life and hearing it from someone else was very strong. It goes, what got you here won't get you there. And so
Hmm.
I think that a lot of the building blocks that I had worked on in life to get to where I am right now, which is not that it's a great spot, but I'm satisfied with the fruits of my efforts at this point. I got the job that I wanted.
Hmm.
Um, but I realized that it only got all those building blocks were only enough to get me in. Now there's a different set of skill sets and more specifically, there's a different set of sacrifices that I now need to make if I want to grow within the place where I got in.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's it's been, I mean, it was very refreshing to hear that, because I realized that for the first time in my young adult life, I had come to a point where I let myself be comfortable, and I put myself in a comfort zone, and that is very detrimental for personal growth, and
Mm-hmm.
growth in any dimension, personal and professional. And I consider that one of my strongest virtues as a human was precisely being very comfortable being uncomfortable. I've always been a firm believer that there's where there is some pain, then that's where growth comes from. There's where growth is, and it's been a while since I retrieved myself from that. I'm in no pain right now. I'm very comfortable, and of course, I have other stuff going on in my life. Most important thing in my life is happening, which is I'm being a father of a phenomenal, wonderful baby.
So who taught you that lesson or that piece of wisdom? Which person told you that who you need to be for the next stage of life is different
Um,
from who you are?
who was it?
Somebody at work?
It was somebody at work. I don't remember what the context was, but it's
It was like a professional development conversation.
no.
You're trying to figure out next steps.
It's someone that it was the person who originally hired me that then left, but that we've remained as we've remained very close.
Mm.
But I'm trying to remember what the context of the moment was. But essentially, it was someone who hired me. He's of course older and um, has done his fair share of mistakes.
Yeah, the piece of wisdom is what got you here is not gonna get you where you need to be, and that's always good professional advice, but it's also good like personal life advice.
Yeah,
And
personally.
then the other wisdom, since being a father, Amelia was born in April, learned about the sacrifices that mothers make, um, particularly early on, child's development, emotionally, physically, mentally, as they go back to work sometimes. It's very taxing, and we grew up in a matriarchy. We're talking about that as well. And the interesting about thing about going to matriarchy, particularly because in a dating context,
Mm.
is that when you grow up underneath the rule of a queen or a mother figure being el jefe, I feel like what you're attracted to is that same quality. So do you know how people say like
Yeah,
men are attracted to their mothers, which is
yeah.
kind of creepy when you think about it. Because like, well, I would never date my mom, bro. Like, forget her being my mom. Like, personality
I
wise,
couldn't exactly. I couldn't.
that personality, bro,
I
you're
couldn't.
not gonna survive together. Like, this is not gonna
I
work.
couldn't. I couldn't.
But then it's crazy because, but the qualities that they have
Yeah,
are what we're appealed to.
yeah.
But anyway, so that's just, I don't know if that's a piece of wisdom, but that's something for sure to unpack maybe in personal therapy. Um, in terms of other life wisdom you picked up along the way, is there any piece of wisdom that you've learned now that if you would go back in time, you would tell your younger self?
A couple perhaps, but I think, uh, and again, I'm not sure if this is wisdom. This could be wisdom, actually, depending on uh, for who it is useful. But I think I would tell myself to be better at forgiving myself for mistakes. I grew up in a also in a sports context environment, and I think sports are a phenomenal tool, precisely to instill wisdom
Mm-hmm.
early on in life, because it serves as some sort of uh, uh, trial of life, or a lab, if you will, uh, which then you can extrapolate some of the uh, tools that you learn from there into life, and not necessarily the physical ones, of course. The only thing is that sports don't do well at all is that. It's to teach you how to forgive yourself. We become self-inflicting and deprecating, and um, it's sometimes a reflex of, because especially in team sports, you don't want to let other people down, and sometimes our mistakes uh, generate consequences not only for yourself but for other people, which is very painful. I was able to translate a lot of the other things from sports to life, but also that as well. I was not able to keep that and on the basketball court. I also brought it into life, and so I think there was a lot of instances where being able to get over something quicker would have made me better at operating as a human being in the context that I was uh, trying to function in.
Any last piece of advice or wisdom you have to share with anybody who's watching and heard your story?
I think, I mean, I might be a bit clouded lately because my mind has been wired in the parent version of myself, and so
Mm.
things that I think of lately more is legacy through my child, and so it's the, I mean, I would consider it as wisdom, but it's the, you have to, like, in, it's one of the other lessons that sports taught me, but you need to be able to meet life halfway, and being okay with the fact that life might not come to you. I mean, you go a journey, and for the end goal to happen, there are certain things that are not necessarily in your hands.
Mm.
There is a part that needs to be done by you. It's a necessary condition. It's just not a sufficient condition. And the other part that makes the whole thing sufficient is not in your hands. But you need to be okay with the fact that you might have to pay a price, but you won't be able to see if the end goal was materialized or not. And I think that happens with parenthood. You need to be able to be okay with the fact that putting all of your effort and making all the sacrifices that are needed might not be enough for your child to fulfill everything that they need to be, that they need to fulfill, which initially and most importantly is become happy in life.
Hmm.
And so,
I mean, the best advice then I will give folks who are watching is, I mean, parenthood is a whole nother hour-long conversation and series. Um, but I think, to summarize, I think it's you to do the best that you can where you are with what you have, and understand that a lot of things are gonna be outside of your control,
mm,
and being okay with the things that are outside of control. Let the chips fall where they may, and do the best you can with the things that you have control over. And even that's a challenge, right? To just to focus on things that are within your purview,
it's a
right?
leap of
And to
faith.
change yourself. I mean, that's, like, forget about changing the world, which is, especially if you're working in development, or in development, international development space. A lot of people go in, or you know
We're
the
motivated
work
by
that
the
we do
idea,
is like, oh,
sure,
I want to
but
change the world, I want to
yeah,
make an impact. But try to change yourself
yeah.
first, and that's
See how hard
everything.
that is,
See
and
how
then
hard that is. Changing your routine,
yeah,
like from a behavioral standpoint,
yeah,
neurobehavioral standpoint,
discipline,
and then try to do that, by a scale of 7 billion, and see what kind of,
yeah, no,
what kind of challenges you have. But thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you, David, man. We're looking forward to the greater wisdom that, of course, more years of fatherhood